So we're going to talk about my top 3 tips to help you feel more energetic and get better quality sleep so that you in turn feel more energetic and get more of the things that matter most done throughout your cycle. So let's dive in. First, I'm going to say that when I first got asked this question about how do I improve my sleep and my energy through the cycle, I thought, great question. Number one, a great question because we can't do anything really meaningful if we don't have the energy to do it, right? So if we've got things that really matter to us, really important, or even like big goals that you might have, we need energy for that to sustain us. And number two, our energy is shifting pretty significantly throughout our cycle, right? We've got the highs, we've got estrogen peaking, we've got it dropping off, we've got progesterone, which gives us a different vibe, and we've got our hormonal low where we just bottom out. And if you're not familiar at all with these, you can grab my guide, my free work align guide, to kind of understand what's going on and when and which part of your cycle. So my first inclination again was like a great question, and then my next inclination was, how do I make this like interesting, or how do I like make it about cycle syncing? But here's the reality. The number one and even number two thing, well, the number one thing I'm going to recommend actually has nothing to do with your cycle. The number two and number three do have something to do with your menstrual cycle and your hormonal phase. But the number one thing I would recommend if you are trying to increase your energy through your cycle is simply to get more exercise. Okay, more movement. And I know this isn't like a new or groundbreaking idea, but sometimes we all need this reminder that putting our time and our focus and our getting our bodies moving to do that actually pays off in a big way. You put 30 minutes in, it's almost like you end up getting 30 minutes of energy out. Movement does so many great things, gets so many hormones going, and just like health benefits that kind of can begin compounding. It's just so powerful. And so absolutely more movement. I do want to give a caution to women watching out there that some kinds of movement, depending on its timing, depending on its intensity, can actually tax the body, and you can end up with the opposite of what you're trying to achieve. So this could be like a really early morning boot camp style class and you haven't even had a chance to eat anything, or maybe you're getting up too early and you didn't get enough rest to begin with. And that can tax your body, right? It can increase cortisol and put you into stress mode. Other things are maybe just a workout that's too long and your heart rate's too high for too long, or it's actually like causing more fatigue. So things that are pushing beyond a comfort level because of the timing of it, because you haven't nourished enough, or because it's just too intense for what you and your body really need, is something to keep in mind. My actual like sub tip for this is really, if you were to ask me what's like the number one exercise that could help increase energy and sleep, it would be a daily morning walk. It's free, it's accessible, and there are so many benefits to it. The light coming in can help set your circadian rhythm. A healthy circadian rhythm can help with sleep. Healthy circadian rhythm, healthy sleep can help with happy hormones, which supports your menstrual cycle, also known as your infradian rhythm, right? These things are all linked and they're all so important. The walking is just so good for your body, right? It's hard to overdo it when you're walking, but if you're feeling good, you can keep going. Like you can get a long walk in. And our bodies are just designed to move in this way. That walking movement is just how we're designed. And I heard someone say recently, and I just really love this like idea image that they put forward. And they said, when you're walking, your body is able to fall into alignment. And I thought it was so good. And so not only is your body falling into alignment, you're getting that light feedback in the morning. It's also increasing your mood, can clear your mind, especially if you take a walk without any extra input. You're not listening to music, which is fine. You could do that. You can listen to music or a podcast. And sometimes we have kids and we have other people, and that's all good. But a quiet walk has like an extra power to calm your mind and kind of clear your mind. But no matter what, just the act of walking, I find really can calm anxieties and also boost energy and confidence. So moving on to number two. The number two thing that I would recommend if you're trying to improve your energy, increase your energy, and get better sleep would be, well, this one's actually really just an energy one. The number one thing, and it might require, anyway, it, the number one thing I would recommend, or number two thing I'd recommend, is that you um, rest during your hormonal low. So this is actually what brought me into this work that I do now, is that I read that in traditional Chinese medicine they recommend often resting more during menstruation. And so I started trying it, and I thought, this is really making a difference in the way the entire rest of my cycle feels. And I'm still blown away by the difference between when I do that during my menstrual cycle versus the cycles where I'm definitely not resting. I definitely want to, but for whatever reason I can't, or I choose not to, or whatever it is. I feel so much differently for the remainder of the cycle. So in phase one, so just a couple days before your period and just a couple days into your period, I highly recommend more rest, more space for yourself. And you can look ahead at the calendar and you can project this out and you can pencil it in, and you can make sure that you can outsource things or cancel things to some extent, and just make sure that you've got a little bit more room to take care of yourself. And I promise you, you will reap the benefits in the rest of the cycle. Well, at least I think you will. I have. So you have to let me know. Have you tried it? Do you find that impact? But I highly recommend. Okay, tip number three. Tip number three is also cycle related. These are cycle specific things that are like things to keep in mind that can sometimes throw off the balance and deplete your hormones if you're not, which depletes your energy and messes up your sleep, right? If you're not keeping these things in mind. So in phase one and phase two, I want you, in addition to the sleeping in phase one, or not sleeping, the resting more, right? More space, slower pace in phase one. I want you to consider in phase one and phase two that you really want to replenish in this time, right? You've lost all this blood, and it's a really good time to replenish. And some of that can be a slower pace. Some of it can be going to bed early. It could be maybe supplements, could just be through diet, making sure you're eating enough and you're eating well and kind of listening to what your body wants and needs. As you move into phase three, which is the hormonal high, typically, and it's that time where you've got a lot of estrogen surging, what happens with the estrogen is going to increase your energy. It's going to increase your optimism, your get it doneness, your like feeling like you can take on the world, you can take a risk, you can like, what's out there, I can do it, what's over here, I'll take care of it. But you want to make sure you don't overdo it. There can be a tendency in this phase to end up overdoing it. And when you overdo it, so maybe you're not eating enough because you're just like, oh, 1.5 meals, totally fine. Or maybe you're pushing late into the night, or just doing something you wouldn't normally do physically, mentally, somewhere in there, right? Choosing something that's a little bit much, you can feel it in phase four, right? So you'll kind of have like a phase three hangover that will deplete your energy. And you don't want to do that, because phase four is this amazing time of like focused, kind of calm energy. But you're really kind of extra sensitive in phase four. So to add on like this extra like depletion or to drain your energies more is not great. You want to be able to use phase four for what you want to get done, not trying to remediate maybe if we're overdoing it. And then finally in phase four, things to keep in mind. So when you're in phase four, you want to make sure that you are, number one, you're eating enough, you're nourishing yourself well. This is a time where you're going to probably feel a little extra hungry, so don't restrict your food, right? It's more of a question of like, eat the amount you need, and then just be aware of like the foods that make you feel good now when you eat them, but also like in 3 hours or tomorrow, versus the foods that maybe like give you a quick boost but don't leave you feeling great the rest of the day or the next day. So you definitely don't want to limit your food in phase four. And then the other thing to be aware of is you want to focus on your sleep. Sleep can be more disruptive in the progesterone dominant phase four. Your body temperature, your BBT, your basal body temperature, is higher during this phase. You're just generally more sensitive again in this phase. And so things I want you to think about are making sure you have some kind of like wind down routine. So that could be, journaling, warm bath, tea, turning the lights down lower to kind of help your body signal that it's time to wind down. That might also be putting technology away and having like that technology or like screen free time for some period of time before bed. And then making sure to focus on general sleep hygiene in the room, right? Really dark as possible. Temperatures lower, just right, whatever you need. And then something you can also consider is that magnesium can be really helpful in this phase to help you sleep. And you can also consider that making sure you're having enough carbs before bed. I've found personally, and I know some other women experience this, where they've eaten, but they haven't eaten like carbs before bed, or maybe enough carbs throughout the day, not purposely, but it just kind of happens. And then they can have more disrupted sleep because of that. So, those are the three key things. Again, number one, more movement, a daily walk if that is something that resonates with you, or daily morning walk. Number two, rest more during phase one, and then some of those considerations about nourishing well, not overdoing it, and focusing on your sleep as you kind of move through the different phases can be really helpful. So let me know below. Do you have more questions? Have you tried these things? Are they helpful? Do you notice the changes in energy that happen throughout your cycle? How do you handle them? I'd love to hear from you.